Hey everyone, my name is Alan Cruz, and I am going to tell you the story of how I broke into VC. So, I am working my first ever job in venture capital, and up until last February 2025, I had no idea what venture capital was. Zero idea. Um, it was something that was new to me, and I want to tell you the story of how I got into it. But before I get into that, important context about me. So, before I even got into venture capital, where I am now working in a content marketing and ghostwriting role with a venture capital company, and more info on that later. And so, before I go into that, just to give you a quick rundown on my experience, I did not go to an Ivy League school. I don't have a finance degree or background, and even in the marketing role, I don't have any quote unquote professional marketing experience. So, I don't know what that will tell you, but I did a lot of freelancing and created my own projects, and my first business was also I learned marketing hands-on. But before I got into venture capital, I went through this huge life event in the summer of 2024 where I suffered a double retina detachment. And due to this retina detachment, I almost permanently lost my vision in both my eyes. And at one point, I did lose vision in my left eye. And so from June to December of 2024, I went through this whole roller coaster of not knowing what was happening, don't know if my vision was going to come back, it might get worse, it might come back, just a lot of things happening, and I went through 4 different surgeries. And ultimately, thankfully, my vision recovered, and I was able to pretty much ease my way back into normal life in January of 2025. And it was around that time when a friend invited me to go to San Francisco, and this is all relevant to how I got into VC. He invited me to stay for a day and a half for a quick weekend trip in mid-January of last year. And I said, you know what? I just went through this traumatic episode, almost lost my vision, self-reflected on my life. Fuck it, why not? I didn't have that much money, but I said, you know what? This is a sign. I think I just need to get out of Vegas. I just went through this whole thing. Let me go. And so I said, all right, let's do it. And I went to stay with my friend near Daly City, and it was a phenomenal trip. But what was a turning point in how it got me into VC was when we were there, I just had this gut feeling that said, you need to be here in the Bay Area, in San Francisco, where I'm living now. And there was nothing else, just that. It was just be here. And I said, okay, cool. I'm gonna follow my gut and we're just gonna see where it takes me. And so after that trip, I got scrappy in figuring out, okay, how am I gonna move here? And so I got that part down, right? Okay, I got the location parts. So it's like, oh, Alan, how'd you move to San Francisco in the Bay Area? Well, I had a trip, and I just had a good feeling. Now the other question is, okay, well, how did you get into venture capital then? And so once I figured out that I wanted to move to San Francisco, I was like, okay, I'm gonna move here. What am I gonna do? And so the same weekend that I was there, I reached out to someone on LinkedIn, and his name is Ben Stokes, and he was running the only LGBT venture capital fund called Chasing Rainbows. And I remember I connected with him back in December. So while I was still at home in Vegas recovering, but I was able to get on, get on LinkedIn, I sent him a connection request and he accepted it, but I never followed up. So I decided after that trip, I was like, okay, he's part of the LGBT community. I'm part of the LGBT community. He cares about social impact and mission. I also care about social impact and mission. Let me reach out to this guy and figure out if he knows people that he can connect me with. And I saw his location on LinkedIn said he was living in San Francisco. And so I thought, oh, cool. Let me ask him about what his experience is like living in San Francisco. And maybe I can make friends with him and meet more of his people and his community. So anyways, long story short, reached out, sent him a long message about, what I just went through, what I'm trying to do, and no mention of venture capital, but he just coincidentally worked in venture capital because he had his own fund. And so he agreed to take a meeting with me. He just sent me a link to book a meeting, nothing else. There's literally no other response. It was just his meeting link, and I said, all right, cool. I'm gonna book as soon as possible. Booked a time, and then we met, I think, a week or two after. And so when we had met, I mean, I was very jittery and nervous because I'm like, oh, like there's this Ben was like very well known in the LGBT venture capital space. And I was like, wow, like I just don't want to waste his time. So, but those are just normal jitters, and I got over that. I got out of my head. So once we actually got to the conversation, we were talking, and I was like, oh, what's like living in San Francisco? What are you up to? He's asking me what I've been up to. I gave him a rundown of my story and, almost losing my vision and what I'm doing now and I want to move to San Francisco, but I don't know what I want to do yet. Anyways, this 30-minute virtual coffee chat then turned into him inviting me to join the fund. In the last few weeks before they closed, they were trying to close their fund one, and to join like as a venture partner, but more specifically to just help out with the personal branding and marketing. And I said, you know what? Fuck it, why not? I mean, I don't really know what venture capital is, but I do know that this is an opportunity that's fallen upon my lap, and I'm going to take it. So that's how I got into venture capital, and it was this whole journey from February to about September of 2025, where, did some personal branding, did some LinkedIn content, thought leadership for him. We worked on a project together, and I was compensated, which I'm very grateful for. And also during that time, I was also doing some freelancing, so I was on Upwork with doing some content marketing. And you might be wondering, okay, Alan, well, if you've never had a marketing job before, how did you build your skills in marketing? My first business was a recruitment agency. I learned a lot about creating my own websites, blogs, advertising, building a funnel, email marketing, drip campaigns. In my first 3 months, I got about 10,000 views on my website and had about 1,500 applicants in my pipeline, and converted about 100 of those into active agents. So I would connect individuals who were interested in remote customer service, and would then connect them with Fortune 500 companies to work remotely. Anyways, that's where I learned the bulk of my marketing, and also some other businesses that I had where I was just experimenting. I created my own blogs, websites, just did a bunch of different things. I experimented. And so, yeah, he gave me a chance, and we worked together for a bit, and I learned a lot about venture capital. I met some of the startup founders of portfolio companies, and I was like, wow, like this aligns so well. And to give you context, my previous career was in government affairs. So actually I had worked in Congress after I graduated college in spring of 2022, then moved to DC June of 2022, and then worked in a US Senate office. So my career, my old life, I was supposed to go to law school and become a lawyer and work in the policy and advocacy field. And so obviously that took a turn. I realized that fuck this, this is not what I want to do. And so that's how I got into venture capital, and I'm grateful because it was someone who just gave me a chance and was like, you know what, let's just see what you got. At least that's my interpretation of, on paper, I am not the person that you would want. I guess for marketing, especially in venture capital, for someone who has no experience, but I figured that I'm adaptable, I learn very quickly, I can get my hands dirty, and that then has led me to my present role, where I am now working at a company called Decile Group, where I am now there. They essentially have multiple programs where they run like a VC accelerator program, and they are on the mission to launch, well, technically they're about to reach it, but 1,000 funds globally, venture capital funds. And so I was able to connect with the CEO, Adeo Resi, and since November have been in this position where, again, like this is actually my technically first ever position. But I mean, I have experience in marketing and LinkedIn and content. It's just in a professional sense, I guess you can say. So it's interesting. I don't know. I reflect on how did I get into these positions where, when I worked with Ben Stokes, he was the #1 go-to person for LGBT venture capital. And then several months later in the year, and then once I made the move to San Francisco in June of 2025, sorry, I forgot to mention that, I eventually made my way, found a sublease, and gave myself 90 days from June to August, extended my stay. I'm now living here, And then November got a role actually after a few months of not being able to find income and find clients. I was able to land a contract role and now I'm full time. But yeah, reflecting on how I got into this world, had no idea what it was about, but I was like, screw it, I'm gonna be curious and just get into it and dive into it. Ben Stokes, LGBT venture capital leader, and then now working with the Decile Group, that's led by Adeo Resi, who is considered, the number one, one of the top VC thought leaders for emerging managers. And so, yeah, it's just been a wild journey, but learning so much that your skills and experiences are enough. Whatever you have, whatever skills you might have, or you think that you might not have, just know that there are people out there who will find value in that. So if you're looking to break into venture capital, to move to San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley, right, or adjacent, there are so many ways to do it. And I feel like I'm a living, breathing case study that it is possible to do it. Because on paper, I was not supposed to succeed. On paper, I should not be in the positions that I am in right now. Yet here I am. I had the audacity, I had the curiosity, I was scared shitless, but I still decided to follow it. I followed my gut, followed my intuition, leaned into trusting myself and knowing that, this is leading me towards something. I don't know what, but it's leading me towards something. So I would say if you're looking to break into venture capital, especially like if you're young, 20s or 30s, no matter what your age is, you have a special skill, experience, perspective, and gifts that others find valuable. Identify that and lean into it. And for me, it was storytelling. Full stop. Marketing, storytelling. Link to thought leadership, storytelling. It all comes back to story. But yeah, so that was just a quick rundown. I'm going to be sharing more of my journey on how I've been breaking into venture capital and how you can do it too. So follow along.